I've been learning Mandarin for many years at this point, and during these years, I've never been really consistent. The most I've gotten was every week I would go to a Chinese class and then do homework the next day, and after that, that was it. And the only time I were to study were if my parents forced me to, or they made me study some sort of vocab, but that wasn't even sort of some input time at all. 可是我发现这个可能理解输入的方法，我就开始我可以学习中文就看剧，可是我还是有点这个一样的困难，就是我会到1天到3天就非常我想学习中文，可是到第4天我会找很多借口说我中文太无聊了，我不想学习，所以我到底是怎么把这个困难就解决掉？那我在这个影片教你。So I've right now currently have a B1 level in speaking in Mandarin, although something not quite fancy, still quite impressive for me, mostly because I've been stuck at around the A level or even at a non-existent level for a very, very long time in Mandarin. Finally able to get out of it, get consistent in learning, and of course, be able to make such as this YouTube channel right here. Now, I want to tell you that I completely understand what you're going through. It's hard to get consistent in Mandarin, especially if it's something that you aren't very super motivated to learn, you haven't found any great content yet, everything still feels like intensive immersion, and if this is the first time you have been, well, practicing the self-immersion thing, because learning Spanish and re-experiencing the beginner parts of it was nice. However, the problem is that I already been in this dance before. I already know how all the things works, and it's really hard for someone to really get into their first method and, well, try it out and then not have any sort of like overwhelming questions and overthinking. So let's bring up the first point, because I want you to be consistent in learning Mandarin so you can finally make the progress that you have wanted. So the first thing we got to talk about is, of course, methods again. I'm not going to talk about the best method you should use. Instead, I'm going to tell you straight away, stop hopping around methods and resources so much. One of the biggest reasons of inconsistency is because of overthinking, and it's because, I think this method isn't going to work for me, it's not going to be like this. In fact, the problem with this mindset is that if you're going to be thinking that you want to just get the best method out there, it's not going to be possible, especially if you're just going to be the first time you're going to be doing self-immersion, or if this is your first language. Because to put it simply, the first language you're going to learn is going to be perhaps the messiest. It's going to be the worst language that you've learned. I'm not saying that's going to be the worst that you speak, but it's going to be the worst that you learn, where in fact all the methods are going to be a bit sloppy. You're going to do everything a bit more suboptimally. And I'm going to just say right now, that's completely normal for your first language. You're not going to be meant to be completely optimized for it. You're going to have to go through a lot of experiences to see what works for you, what doesn't work for you. Should I use Anki? Should I do this instead? Blah, blah, blah. So the first thing I want to talk about is, yes, you shouldn't be hopping around methods. You should just focus on one. Just listen to someone like me, or let's say some other people that have gotten results that you wanted, and just focus on their method. Just focus on it and don't try to consume any other language content for a while. I'll tell you just to do this instead. So learn how to set up Anki. I'm going to put in a link in the description. I have an Anki Mandarin guide, also a bunch of other technical setup guides that'll help you with setting up Anki and all the stuff for sentence mining. You'll learn what those terms are in the video. Once you've gotten Anki and stuff set up, what I want you to do is go to the full language learning guide, learn how to, let's say, do all the stuff that I've mentioned, learn how to look for content, and just pick 1 to 2 pieces of content. Yes, just 1 to 2 pieces of content. They could be dubbed, they could be a beginner if you're still extremely new, just anything at the moment right now. And what you want to do is just simply free flow them and then just mind their subtitles for, let's say, vocabulary or sentences. It's very, very simple. That's all I'm going to ask you for that. And if you're able to do this for around 3 months, you will see progress. And then that's the time, okay, then I can start to reevaluate my methods. Wait for around 1 2 months, even 3, before you stop and reconsider, okay, am I going to do something? For example, right now I'm trying out what's something called coursing. Long ago, before when I started to want to try to improve my pronunciation and speaking, I tried coursing, but I was never consistent with it. You could see why I haven't really improved my pronunciation extremely well, because, well, I wasn't consistent with it. And if you're not consistent with something, you're not going to do it. Even if it has some sort of downsides to it, even if it isn't the most optimized thing on earth, if you consistently stick with something, even the bad methods like textbooks and only doing exercises and drills, you could still make a good amount of progress if you just stick consistently to them, compared to if you have the super most optimized method but you don't even do it for more than 1 day a week. So that's all. However, being consistent with one method is hard, mostly because of this chart. It's a chart by Alex Homorzi, I don't know how to pronounce his name, and he pretty much goes into the point where you have some sort of uninformed optimism, but then soon you're gonna have this thing called informed pessimism. And once you get this informed pessimism part, you're going to drop down to what may be called valley of despair. And this lowest point in not only just language learning, but almost anything else in life is going to really determine whether or not you will succeed in language learning. And just to be clear, this is not just for beginners as well. This can apply to almost any level in language learning, where pretty much it goes kind of like this. Let me go give you a small demonstration. Let's say you've been wanting to get into self-immersion. You're like, oh, this is going to be so cool. I get to just watch. It's going to be so easy and stuff. But then you realize at point 2, it's going to be, wait a minute, I can't understand anything. And I have to mind subtitles. I have to set up all this stuff. And then you hit 3 where it's like, I haven't just been making any progress. I thought this was going to be easy and such. And if you decide on number 3 to what's called crash and burn, which I've had an experience myself, and just give up, well, I'm just sorry, but you failed the most important test in language learning. It's not like saying you could try again, but if you were to, let's say, oh, this is too hard, let me go to another method, then what have you done? Pretty much you just now broken the consistency of just sticking with one method and say, okay, maybe I'll try something else. And then what's going to happen with that next method? Let's say, for example, we'll be learning through, textbooks, just because self-immersion didn't work out for you so well. So it's like, oh yeah, I get to do textbooks and stuff. I'm going to make so much progress. Oh, I'm making so much progress. But then you realize, wait a minute, I'm not actually making any real progress. And then the whole cycle repeats over and over again, where you just keep hopping methods and methods and methods and methods, not making any real progress in one because, well, you didn't spend enough time to stick with it. So that's just number 1. So how can we survive this valley of despair? Well, it's going to be really hard, and what I want you to do is be extremely aware of this time. It could happen at almost any level. It could happen at almost any sort of point in your language learning. So that's your first thing. Be extremely aware of it, and when it comes, be mentally prepared for it, where you're going to feel like you're just not making any progress at all. Another way to also overcome this valley of despair, in my experience, is looking up progress update channels. And now I don't want you to go and try to copy exactly the methods that they use. Stick with your methods as long as most of your principles and their principles line up together. For example, you're still using around the same method of, let's say, immersion-based learning, then it can be really great motivation and showing you where, okay, this method actually works. I just need to keep going and keep going and keep going. I just need to keep improving myself as long as I'm at this level. And then once you're able to get this motivation, then you can go back to learning your language. Just don't get too preoccupied and watching them too much. But I find that progress channels can really give you a lot of motivation, where there are some times where you just been feeling like you haven't been making any progress in Mandarin at all. But also, how do you overcome this cycle of overthinking, as they call it, where you're like in this method, but it's like, oh, but am I doing everything right? Am I doing everything right? Well, first thing I'd also like to tell you as well is, don't care. Don't care if everything is super optimized. Most of the times where if I try to care too much, for example, in Mandarin about, let's say, how I'm speaking well, or am I going to be speaking well, rather than just pretty much shutting off my mind and doing the exercises, let's say, chorusing or speaking practice, reading out loud, I find many times I tend to make some sort of more progress by just shutting off my brain and doing some of the things that I've been prescribed to do or self-prescribed myself to do rather than that, because it really does help with, it really does help. That's the reason why you should also stop overthinking, but also because of the reasons of just saying that it's going to be inevitable that you'll be making mistakes, and it's not going to be the end of the world if you do so, if you don't have everything super optimized. In fact, it can probably be a bit detriment if you have everything super optimized, because you're just going to be, I don't know, worrying about things 24/7, and you'll be worrying about them so much that you won't actually be learning the language, and more or not, you would just be thinking about your method all the time. This is the reason why I also said just stick to one method, turn off your brain, and follow it. It could be mine, it could be other people's, whatever. Oh, and make sure not to do we try to push so hard with something where you think it's not working, and then as a result you're just going to burn yourself out and, well, no longer have fun on the language. Instead, be patient, try to just focus on one thing and such. And some other consistency tips, if you're not experiencing all of these, is, well, simply having stuff like a tracker, all the scheduling and stuff. I put these things at the last because I hope you already know all this stuff. Having a schedule, I also find that doing the hardest thing first thing in the morning is the best. Pretty much pick probably your first or second most active time of the day, and choose those times where you will be focusing on an extremely hard task or the thing that is currently giving you the most problems with language learning. Also, make sure not to be a bit too complacent with just learning, where it's like, oh, I could just do this and that. Instead, really try to do the real hard tasks during those times. So if you're right now very comfortable with just free-flowing immersion, then don't do free-flowing immersion. Instead, do intensive immersion instead during those times. And then later, when you're a little bit less motivated, you're still a bit more sleepy because you just ate lunch or something, then you can do that. Also, setting the bar of success small. You've already heard this a lot, but I want to give you a story as well, where there was a time when I was starting to really consistently learn Mandarin, where around every day, I'm gonna call him M. I'm the one to reveal his real name, but he knows who he is if he's watching it. So M was a friend of mine in Mandarin class. He's a great person, and then he started to realize that I was starting to do stuff like, watch Mandarin shows like every single time. He's like saying, oh, at this point you're gonna be able to, let's say, pass the AP exam, you're gonna be able to like ace the AP exam at this point. I'm like, whatever. But little did I realize that this was probably the best thing I could have done, because all I did was just set my bar of success small, and because I set this bar of success so small, I was soon be able to consistently immerse for around at least 1 to maybe even 2 hours a day, getting to that point where I don't need some sort of very small 15-minute thing, and I was just able to just do pretty much have Mandarin come naturally to me. It's really not that hard. And that's another reason why setting bars of small success is good. Pretty much set around maybe a very small goal, so it's not super overwhelming to your brain. It's like, oh, I have to do an hour of speaking. Oh my goodness. Set something like 30 minutes. I was like, oh, 30 minutes. That's easy. I'll just do 30 minutes. It's like, oh, great. I did 30 minutes. I can do another 30 minutes. And then soon you've done an hour. So those are some random consistency tips I have for things like trackers and, well, scheduling. I'll put mine in the link in the description. I used the Refold tracker, and when I was learning Spanish, I used their tracker in Dreaming Spanish. Now, that's all I gotta say for now, and I really hope you take all the advice seriously in the video, and you could get back on track to being consistent in learning Mandarin. So, we have a road to explore. 我们的旅程刚刚开始. Thank you for watching. Yes, the last thing, of course, I do have a paid Mandarin reading program, and if you want to support me, please check it out.